This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
It is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens, 75 high-quality vitamins to help you start your day right. All right, Greg, before we get into this Colts game, we sit here now 4-4, pretty much the halfway point to the season. Of course, now there's 17 games, so technically not yet, but we are there, about 8.5 games, right? So we're there at the halfway point. And I saw that you have some good news and some bad news for Patriots fans. Let's start with the good news, Greg Bedard.
Yeah, good news is they're one spot out of the playoffs. They're right there. I would say that overall, and Nick, I'm sure you would agree with this, that there is a, certain elite class in the NFL, especially in the AFC. Yep. I think you're talking Buffalo, Kansas City. I think Baltimore's knocking on the door of that, especially with the Roquan Smith trade, which I think addresses a humongous need for them at linebacker and makes them a lot better on defense. Now, will John Harbaugh keep going for fourth downs in idiotic situations? I don't know. But I would say, those teams are sort of, the class of what's going on. I think, when you talk about the Patriots, they're in sort of a large middle group where anything could happen as far as, what happens down the stretch. Like, you can't say, I would say, as far as playoff teams, Tennessee will probably win the South. They're 5-2, definitely a flawed 5-2 team, but Mike Vrabel is doing Mike Vrabel things again. Baltimore's leading the North. And then I think you would probably say Miami is sort of, they haven't locked it up yet, but in terms of, that gives you 5 teams in the AFC. And I think, part of the good news is that the Patriots are in a very jumbled middle where they've beaten some of the teams. They're going to face some of the teams, but I think that they have as good a chance as anybody if they get their stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of really the league, there is the cream of the crop this year that is truly the cream of the crop. And then there's a bunch of other teams, like even in the NFC. So I think you're right. And we've talked about that, Greg, you and I, about this football team. They're pretty much in the middle of the pack. If they play great football, they can beat a lot of teams. If they play bad football, they can lose to a lot of teams. They're in that middle tier. And that's what we've seen play out through the first 8 weeks, where, if you play well, you probably, could possibly beat Green Bay there at Lambeau. But if you play bad, you get absolutely smoked by Chicago at home on Monday night. Like that's kind of where they're at. And the Dolphins, I would agree with you. I think they're part of the mix, not the cream of the crop just yet. I want to see them play a little bit more. But I think if you look at the rest of it, the Bengals without Jamar Chase, big time question mark. Their offensive line has been inconsistent. The Colts, I do not believe in. We'll talk about them a little bit later with their movement at quarterback and firing their offensive coordinator this week. The Raiders on paper, tremendously talented. On the field, they haven't won a road game, and they've really, really, really underachieved through the first, several weeks of the season, first 7-8 weeks of the season. So I think you're right. We're right about there. As far as what you're confident in and what you might be worried about with this football team as we reach the halfway point, let's again start optimistic. What are you confident about when you talk about the New England Patriots and when you watch them on film?
When I look at the Patriots, I think, and I thought about this for a while. All right, like, what's the thing that I'm banking on the most that I'm like, all right, this will give the Patriots an edge over most teams, including this week against the Colts. And it's just Belichick in general. I think that, look, do I think he's throwing 99 now? No, but I still think he's throwing mid-90s, and he's gotten very crafty. And pretty much every game that the Patriots come out and look, the Bears game is the exception to the rule. And almost every team has one of those games. The Raiders had it last week against the Saints where, it just doesn't work. And it makes you look worse than you really are. That was the Bears game for the Patriots. I thought they overthought a lot of things in that game plan, underthought a lot of things, mostly that they didn't think that there was much chance that the Bears were going to beat them or at least run away with the game. I think that they went into that thinking like we can kind of screw around and do a few things here, including at quarterback, some of the edge stuff on defense. The Bears aren't going to run away from us or anything. So even if we screw up, we can make up for it in the second half. That did not happen. The Bears ran away from them. But in general, Bill, and this is why I never thought like the whole Matt Patricia, Joe Judge thing was going to be a disaster, because Bill is there to oversee everything and sort of direct everything. And you could tell on the sidelines of game day, he is heavily invested in the offense compared to the defense. I mean, he just is. He's basically overseeing the offense. And so, that I always believed that would be the case. And so that has given me confidence on the offensive side of the ball. But, on defense, they're always going to have a good plan, and Bill's always going to have a plan for the team in general that is going to keep them in the game. And like I said, the Bears game was the exception, but 9 times out of 10, the Patriots are going to be in the game. And that gives me the most confidence with this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, Belichick, he has done some things that, of course, we've questioned. And, I had my rant last week, and I still stand by that. If they somehow win, 6 games or less, which looks very unlikely at this point, being 4-4, then everything's on the table. If he finishes with, 7, 8, 9 wins, then it's, hey, we got to contend next year. But I do generally believe in the plan that he has week in and week out. I just didn't like how he handled some of the coaching staff stuff, and how he handled the Mac Jones thing. I thought was a disaster, but I still have confidence in him. I mean, look, it's all relatively speaking. I used to have this conversation in Boston when I was doing radio at EEI and even at 98.5 with Brad Stevens. People would be bitching about Brad Stevens, and I'd say, look, he's still a top 5 coach. Like, he doesn't do everything great. He's not perfect. And eventually his voice kind of wore down that team, and he decided that it would be best for him to move on as the, shot caller in the front office. But it's the same thing with Belichick. Like, you're not going to have a flawless operation, but when you look at the coaching in the NFL, the guy is still the cream of the crop. He's still one of the elite coaches. So I don't have much doubt. I know you have somebody else on the list, and I would jump in on this as well. Rhamondre Stevenson, Greg, you go back a couple of years ago, I stood on my table about getting the football to Damian Harris. And I still believe that. I still believe Damian Harris is a really good back, but Stevenson's better. And he is, I tweeted this on Sunday, and it's not rocket science. He by far is the best offensive player on this football team.
Yeah, I mean, he's just dynamic, and now a variety of different ways. I definitely have a lot of confidence in him. Of course, at the running back position, a lot of it's dependent on what's going on him, namely, the blocking, and is the passing game effective enough to give him the opportunity to run. But then again, we saw against the Jets that even if it wasn't blocked well, and it wasn't blocked well most of the day, I mean, Stevenson can just break a couple tackles and get 50 yards. And, the James White arrow route that he pulled out, the one-handed grab, you're just like, holy cow, there is something there. And you do, I think we mentioned it, you do worry about the workload with him. I do think he's built for it, and at least in a 1-year scenario, that's fine. You're hoping probably at some point that the Patriots get Ty Montgomery back to give you a little bit more in the pass game as far as alleviating some of the stuff from Stevenson. But there's little question that he is the best offensive player on this team right now, and he's been sensational all year. Sort of started at the end of last year, and credit to him, he just has rolled it into this year and gone up another level.
Yeah, I'd also mentioned Jacoby Myers. He deserves mention, obviously, as a key offensive player. He's been really good, man, and I hope he stays, but who knows what happens with that. All right, defensively, you talked Belichick coaching, you talked offensively. Defensively, what do you feel confident in?
I continue to really like their man coverage ability in the back end, as far as, receivers, all right, tight ends and running backs. You can sort of argue with that, and I would not argue against it. But as far as like their cornerbacks and their ability, if they're able to play man to man, I mean, from Jonathan Jones, Jalen Mills at times, I thought he was better this past week. Miles Bryant at times, Jack Jones at times. Most of the time when Jack Jones just has to cover, then, I'm good with that. Now, do I think they're a little thin there? And we talked about the trade deadline and adding another person to the mix at cornerback. Would I have been in favor of that? Yes, because they're one injury away from Jonathan Jones for them to be, really rough at cornerback. But when I watch the film and when they get the opportunity to play man-to-man, and they still do play a lot of man-to-man, that's what they want to do, and they're much worse in zone. That's why they struggle so much with these mobile quarterbacks that they have to worry about running the ball. I really like how they cover man-to-man, and how that plays out against the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities of the world, I don't know. But for now, these guys cover really well in the back end, these cornerbacks, and they're doing a great job.
Now let's talk about your worries, Greg. I'd have to imagine, especially after last weekend, somebody who is a big fan of offensive line play and talks offensive line play. And some people pick on my guy, Greg, about loving the offensive line play. But I've got to imagine that is likely one of the things on your worry list is the guys up front in front of Mac Jones.
Yeah, it is. And I put the whole group, but, really, as long as they get David Andrews back, and who knows, he didn't practice yesterday, still dealing with the concussion from the Bears game. It's really the right tackle position. I mean, it's part of the reason why we talked up in the run up to the draft. I was like, they got to draft a tackle, and then they drafted a guard, and that's fine. We've been through that before. And, because I think Trent Brown has, even last week, I mean, he had some issues from time to time, but for the most part, he's been pretty good since week one. He's been really good. I haven't had any issues with Trent Brown. You worry about durability, but that hasn't shown up yet. But it's right tackle and left guard. And Cole Strange is fine. I mean, he's where he is. He's a young player. This is what you deal with. But you see when David Andrews is not there, there are issues. And one of the underlying things that people haven't really talked about, and they look at the PFF numbers from Cole Strange in certain games and things like that. What they don't realize is he gets a lot of help from David Andrews, and that's fine. I mean, that's what you would think, because Michael Wenu at right guard has been sensational this year. And so pretty much anytime Andrews doesn't have anybody readily to block, he turns to Cole Strange's side. Now, James Ferentz does that too. He's very smart. He's just limited athletically. But, I think that Cole Strange, as long as he has Andrews there, he'll be fine. It's good enough. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. He's a rookie. You deal with it. Right tackle's just been pretty much a disaster from day one in training camp with Isaiah Wynn, to the point that they had to bring Marcus Cannon back, who is really slow of foot this time around. They don't really have anything that they can rely on. Yadni Kajust has been here seemingly forever as a third-round pick, yet they will not play him. I don't know why he's on the roster if they won't play him with the issues that they're having at right. Could it be any worse? I mean, really? Could it be any worse? I mean, why not give him a try? But, yeah, offensive line, because of all that, and if the offensive line doesn't play well, the Patriots can't stay balanced. They can't run the ball. There's too much pressure on Mac Jones, who's a pocket quarterback, and things sort of crumble. So, to me, the whole season hinges on the offensive line. Can they get it together? They still have the pieces, but can they get it together? I don't know.
I feel like Bill Murray in the movie Groundhog's Day, when he consistently rolls over in bed every morning and I Got You Babe is playing on the radio, and he's going to smash the radio with his hand to stop, I've Got You Babe, because he's living the same day over and over and over and over again, waiting for Punxsutawney Phil. That's the deal with linebacker with this team. I'm living the Bill Murray thing. We talk about it all the time, Greg. We've talked about it for years. We talked about it after the Buffalo Bills absolutely embarrassed and humiliated that defense, not once, but twice. And the final time in the playoffs, as we all know, you and I were screaming for athletic linebackers. You and I were screaming for a guy like Devin Lloyd in the first round. Of course, we were told that Cam McGrone was right around the corner. I'm worried about the second level against mobile quarterbacks because Lamar Jackson's killed him. Justin Fields has killed him. Again, Allen killed them last year. I would just imagine that he's going to kill them again this season. Am I right to be worried about that?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I would definitely be worried about that. It's some of the fear factor, a slight fear factor that I had this week against the Colts, in terms of Sam Ehlinger and his athletic ability. But, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think, their linebackers, when you look at them, when they have to play faster teams, they have to go into zone. And these guys, they don't do a good job of getting where they need to in their drops. They get exposed against the faster teams. Like, the Patriots look slow as a team. I mean, we saw that against the Bears, where it was just like, wait a minute, this is the same thing as last year. I thought they were getting faster where they are, and they just haven't been able to do that. And I think that's a weakness. It's fine against some of the teams that they play. And, the Patriots even look fast at times, but against the better teams in this league, the better offenses in this league, they just look mediocre. And I think there's a saying, and I've heard Mike Lombardi say it, and I've heard other people say it, that that you don't have a fast team. You're as fast as your middle linebacker allows you to be. And Juwan Bentley is just limited, but he's a guy they gave an extension to, and they would rather him defend well against the run against bigger teams than be able to run around.
And we were hopeful that one of those other guys would hit, right? Like before the season started, we said, well, you've got Mack Wilson, you've got McMillan, you've got Tavai, you've got maybe McGrone, who can get healthy and feel better again and be in the mix. And so from a number standpoint, you needed one of those four guys to hit, and really none of them have hit on any consistent basis. And, that's on the staff. Greg and I can sit here and say, well, they just need one to hit and the linebacker might not be bad. But it's up to the staff to evaluate these guys and truly know what they have. And they swung and missed on every single one of them. And I think you made a great point earlier this week. Like, it's not like Tavai is Captain Reckless out there. He's not an impact player, and he's not somebody who can make plays against elite offenses and running quarterbacks consistently. And that's what they need. They need an impact guy who could run around the football field and make some plays and show up. They need a Kyle Duggar-esque linebacker, so to speak. Downhill, flying around the field, sure tackler, making people pay, and they don't have that. All right, so one more thing. Play calling, especially situational play calling and tight game play calling. Your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I think it's a complete unproven thing. And, Matt Patricia's been an ongoing discussion. He will be. And, you just look at some of the games that they've played this year, and you just look at the Patriots and, have they really been tested yet? Where it's, all right, it's the fourth quarter and you got to go back and forth. They score. Now you got to go down and score. And, the Dolphins game was pretty much out of reach. The Steelers game, they were able to get a lead and just sort of, run that game out. The Ravens, they couldn't match. The Packers were a different game because of, being down quarterbacks. They got ahead of the Lions and the Browns, and those games were over. The Bears game was the Bears game. And then, the Jets game was similar, I would say, to the Lions and the Browns game, where once they got control of the game early in the third quarter, that was it. But we still don't know what this team is like, especially Matt Patricia. How is he going to call games? I mean, it's fine to script the first 15 plays or, what have you, and sort of, game plan for the middle of the game. It's much different in game to say, all right, what's working, what's not working, and then come up with the big plays. He has not been tested, but these games, whether it's, I doubt it's this weekend, and possibly the Jets have a better answer if Zach Wilson doesn't vomit on himself again. But, games like the Vikings, the Bills, the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Bengals. I mean, basically the whole rest of the schedule, they're going to have to pull some games out in the fourth quarter to win those games. And that's something, I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying it's a great unknown.
It's a great unknown indeed. Before we get to this Colts game on Sunday, Greg, tell the people about Athletic Greens.
I started taking AG1 because I wanted to make sure I was getting all the vitamins and nutritional supplements I needed in one place. Now I've been on it for about 4 months and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy. It has kind of a mild tropical taste, a little minty, and I actually look forward to it each morning. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things you're looking for. I take it first thing in the morning, and now it's part of my morning routine, and I'd be lost without it. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar. Love that. No GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Bedard. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Bedard to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
The Indianapolis Colts, a team that's on shaky ground right now. Chris Ballard on the hot seat, their GM, Frank Reich on the hot seat. They fired their offensive coordinator this week, even though he's not responsible for calling the plays. They benched Matt Ryan after trading for him in the offseason. That did not work out a year after the Carson Wentz disastrous situation. Jonathan Taylor also banged up. Not sure if he's going to play this weekend, but let's look at this offense, Greg. Sam Ehlinger now quarterback. They're trying to figure out what they have in him, and what do you see when you look at this Colts offense?
I mean, it's rough. I mean, they still come up with plays for Jonathan Taylor, who, of course, did a number on the Patriots last year in the game where they couldn't stop him when the game ever. But really, when the game was on the line, they needed one more stop to win that game, and the guy goes like 80 yards for a touchdown.
Brutal.
Yeah, I would say, Ehlinger is, how do I put this? He's more of an athlete than a quarterback. He's basically, he's a little bit like Zappe. He's 6'1", pretty strong. He's got a strong arm. Definitely at Texas, he's a runner. He took a lot of hits, a little bit reckless. Kind of reminds me of Carson Wentz a bit more than anything. And, the Colts, it'll remind people a little bit of the Steelers offense in terms of a lot of motion end arounds. They're trying to come up with yards, screens, slip screens, stuff like that. They will dial up. He hit a couple long passes against Washington last week. But the big thing is I expect the Patriots to bring a bunch of heat this game, both against the run and Ehlinger, and just, I would spy Ehlinger, don't play zone. That made it, he did a pretty good job against zone against Washington. I would put the pressure on him and see if you can make the pipes burst. Defensively, what do the Colts look like? Look, Nick, I think we've talked about this over the years. How does Gus Bradley keep getting jobs?
He's got pictures on people or something. He's got to have
Frank
pictures.
Reich goes from, he had Matt Eberflus last year, who does a good job. We saw him with Chicago. He did a good job against, Mac Jones got picked off twice last year. A guy who does a lot of mixing and matching on defense in terms of what he does, changes things up, gives you different looks pre and post snap. To, it's Gus Bradley in the old Seattle cover 3, which died about 10 years ago. Yet, he keeps getting jobs. I mean, they got Stephon Gilmore out there. We all know how Gilmore does when he has to play zone as opposed to man. Now, they will play some man, but, their pass rush isn't, effective enough. It's okay. Their defensive line's okay. Shaq Leonard is not the same guy anymore. He's been dealing with injuries. He's not as fast. They actually moved him. He's not the Mike linebacker anymore. I think he played 29% of the snaps. He's like a package player right now because he's so limited. And it's a rough defense. I would expect the Patriots to be able, this could be their best, against a decent team, not the Browns and the Lions, but this could be their best offensive game. Look, the Colts will try to limit you in terms of big plays and things like that, and that's what that defense is good at. But this is just the same thing. I can't believe Gus Bradley is still employed as a defensive coordinator.
We got the pick coming up. Pat's favored by 5 points. The over-under's 39.5. Greg and I got back on the balance beam last week. We're 7-1. Greg, just judging from your comments earlier, I have to imagine you like the Patriots in this spot.
Yeah, I do. I think the defense could throw a shutout in this game. I think they'll be able to move the ball enough. Now, we'll see whether they're successful in the red zone. This defense tightens up a bit there. But, yeah, I like the Patriots in this game. I mean, I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. Ellinger might bust a play, or Jonathan Taylor, if he's healthy, might bust a play here and there. But I like the Patriots somewhere in the realm of 24-10, somewhere in there.
My score is going to be 23-10. I shit you not. So I'll go Patriots -5. I'll go the under. I agree with a lot of what Greg said. I'll go 23-10. I think the Patriots can take care of business here, and they better take care of business, because if they struggle against this football team, I don't think the Colts are very good. You're at home. And there are going to be opportunities on both sides of the football to take advantage of the Colts. So I like the Pats in this spot, and I think they'll be 5-4 when we talk about them next week. The BSJ member question of the day, $39.99 on the annual plan. All the great Boston sports coverage. Of course, you also get Greg in the chats. You get Greg's film work as well. What's the question for today, Greg?
So Victor H says, is this the point of the season when we know what kind of teams this is? Is 8 games enough to stop making excuses and start drawing conclusions? Just checking. It's not quite enough time, because I do think the quarterback injury, Mac Jones, sort of, delayed everything. They've done well enough. I wouldn't say I think they've underachieved a little bit. I had them 5-3 at this point. They're 4-4, but they're still in it. I think that the rest of the AFC going down a notch than where we thought they were in the preseason has certainly kept them in the game.
Yep.
Do we know what kind of team they are? I would say no. I think let's get through this game, and then I think it's the bye week after this game. I think, and then they have the Jets on the other side. No, I mean, I think they're going to be a complete unknown going into that tough final stretch. And a lot of those teams don't have great records or aren't that great on paper, like the Vikings or even the Cardinals and the Raiders. But those teams will challenge the Patriots. They present a lot of difficulties. I would really like them to start getting more ground based and imposing their will. I think that's really the offense should run through Rhamondre Stevenson and the running game, and everything should branch off that. Will Matt Patricia do that? We shall see.
Yeah, they get the bye week after this game. Then they've got the Jets at home. And then, of course, you've got that Thanksgiving game against the Vikings in Minnesota, gobble, gobble. And then you've got the Bills, Cardinals, and Raiders after that. So that's how the schedule maps out. And I agree with you. You look at a lot of these teams. Let's give Max some more time coming back from this injury. All the changes in the offseason. But when you look around the league, there's not a lot of great football, folks. There's really not. The Packers are not good right now. The Buccaneers are not good right now. The Rams are not good right now. Some of these teams that we thought would be in the upper echelon, they're just not showing up. He is Greg Bedard. I am Nick Cattles. It's the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with, you guessed it, Nick Cattles, brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens. Sunday, Colts, Patriots. We'll see if we're right. Can we move to 8-1 on the season with our picks? We'll check on that and a lot more early next week. Everybody enjoy the football over the weekend. Be good, be safe, and be healthy.